Hi guys, so in this lesson today we're going to be making a Swiss roll. It's very similar to a Victoria sponge, but it's the roll that we're going to put the cake batter in here, and then once it's cooked we're going to bring it out of the oven and roll it up. So the first thing we do is we have to mix our eggs and our sugar together until we get ribbons. Now you'll see what I mean by ribbons later on. So into my 115 grams of caster sugar, we're going to add 3 eggs. We've got 2 eggs here already broken for us, so I'm just going to pour those in there. And when you're cooking, I think it's always a good idea not to add your eggs straight into your mixture. And the reason why I say that is because often you can get eggshell in the mixture, and it's harder to get it out. So always remember to crack your eggs into another dish first before adding them to the mixture. So just take a spoon and just make a nice sharp crack through there. Put your thumbs into that little crack and pull the egg open, okay? So you can see that I haven't got any shell in there, it's all okay to go. So I'm just going to pour that into there with the other 2 eggs. Now, you're probably going to need an electric beater to do this, because it takes quite a lot of beating until you get that ribbon effect. So just give it a little bit of a mix first without turning the beater on, otherwise it can spray everywhere. And just start beating slowly until it's combined, and increase the speed. And you should notice that the mixture will become paler in colour. Now I've been beating this mixture for about 3 minutes and it's not fluffy enough. It looks as if the sugar's dissolved well into the mixture, which it has, but we want to get as much air into this mixture as possible, so we have a lovely light sponge. So, and there's no ribbons, and by ribbons I mean that when I pull the beater out, you should get a trace of where the beater's been. Well, that's not happening, it's still too runny. So I'm just going to carry on beating this for a little bit longer. Okay, so I'm just going to check it again. Now when I do this, you can see the beater line staying there. So this is ready to add our flour into it. Just going to pop that to the side. Just going to add a little bit of vanilla into this for flavouring. So just a spot. And now we've got our flour, 85 grams of self-raising flour. Going to just sift that across the top of the surface, and we just do a little portion at a time and then we mix it through. And again, we have to be careful that we don't over mix this. So now we've got our flour sifted into the mixture, and we're just going to fold it through. Now when we're folding, you're going under and over, and the reason why we fold is to keep that lovely air trapped in there, which gives us our lovely fluffy sponge. So make sure you go right down to the bottom of the bowl and bring it under and over. And only do this until you see no traces of flour left. And it's really tempting to give it a good mix, but you're going to spoil the texture of the sponge if you do that. Okay, so now we've got our flour folded through the mixture there, and we need to pour it into our prepared baking dish here. So we've used baking parchment paper, and I'm going to use a little bit of the mixture just to glue the paper down into the tin, because we need to get the mixture right into the corners and the edges of the dish. So just a little bit of this there and there and there. And you can use melted butter if you want to. So I've got the baking paper firmly in the baking dish, you'll notice that I've also slit the corners here, and that's so that the paper fits neatly into the baking tray. So now what we do is we just pour the mixture very gradually down the middle of the tray and just scrape it out. We have to be careful that we keep all that lovely air trapped in there, because we want a lovely fluffy sponge. And now just very carefully spread it round, right into the corners. You want this as evenly spread as possible so that it bakes evenly. And I'm just going to give it a gentle tap just to break out any air bubbles. And now we're going to cook that for about 9 minutes, or 9 to 12 minutes at 180 degrees fan. And we can tell if it's cooked by just giving it a little gentle push, and it should spring back. So you can just see that it springs back. So I'm very carefully going to take this out of the oven. So I'm just going to pop it on the heat pad. And now this is a bit tricky. Bring the parchment paper as close as possible, and I've lined this with some caster sugar. So I just lift this up and you just very carefully just flop it over. And now we need to peel the paper off the back of your sponge. And start by doing the edges first, and they may break off a little bit, but that's okay. And you can either peel away from you or towards you, whatever you're more comfortable doing. So just lift that back. And if you find that the paper sticks to the cake mixture, you just dab a few drops of water on there, leave it for a minute, and it loosens the paper. So that's got the paper off there. So I've just got some strawberry jam to put over this. I'm just going to, and I've just warmed this slightly so that it spreads more easily. And just spread that right across. Don't add too much because it will ooze out the sides, but also add enough so that it's not too dry. Now we're ready to roll this now. So guide it over with your fingers and then roll it. And there you have it, your lovely Swiss roll. Now, sometimes when you've cooked a Swiss roll and you've done this for the first couple of times, you may find that you'll get a crack in it. Well, that's not the end of the world, because it still will taste delicious. So if you do find that you have some cracks in your Swiss roll when you've rolled it, you can just dust it with a little bit more icing sugar, and that'll hide that. Put a little bit of icing sugar into a sieve and just carefully dust it over. And even if it hasn't cracked, it's still quite a nice finish to have on it. Okay, so now we can enjoy it.